Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just back again. Just going to continue on with the study of 2nd Esdras and going on to 13. And, 12 was an excellent summary of the power structures and then how they're eventually going to be dwindled down to nothing. And so 2nd Esdras 13 starts going into a little bit more detail about the sequence of events of the end times. So reading 2nd Esdras 13, after 7 days I dreamed a dream in the night, and lo, a wind arose from the sea and stirred up all its waves. And I kept looking, the wind made something like a figure of a man come up out of the heart of the sea, and I saw that this man flew with the clouds of heaven. Those are chariots or UFOs. And wherever he turned his face to look, everything under his gaze trembled. And whenever his voice issued from his mouth, all who heard his voice melted as wax melts when it feels the fire. And so this is a description of Christ and his angels and the elect in UFOs and what they're able to do, and physically to people, and it's fire. It's able to burn and kill. Verse 5, and after this I looked and saw that an innumerable multitude of people were gathered together from the four winds of heaven to make war against the man who came up out of the sea. And I looked and saw that he carved out for himself a great mountain and flew up on it. And I tried to see the region or place from which the mountain was carved, but I could not. Thankfully, in other places, really everywhere in the prophetic books, we know exactly where that place is. It's described as Jehoshaphat, Megiddo, the Valley of Decision, Lebanon, the Euphrates, Armageddon, the wrath of God, all these different places. This is where Christ and the elect and his angels are, quote, parked, for the final battle, the wrath of God, against this, quote, innumerable multitude who are gathered together from the four winds of heaven to make war against God himself. This sounds outlandish to a lot of people, but this is the earth expressing collectively its hatred towards God and the God of the Bible. After this I looked and saw that all who had gathered together against him to wage war with him were filled with fear, and yet they dared to fight. Again, this is only people who have the mark of the beast and worship the beast and the image. And so they're all on God's left-hand side. There's no more filtering of any people at this point. There is a small remnant who God is protecting, and we'll talk about that. But and it's described here, but broadly speaking, this is the wrath of God. And it even says here they dared to fight. They're going to start using all of their weaponry, all of their intel, and they have the audacity to fight against Jesus Christ himself. And verse 9 says, when he saw the onrush of the approaching multitude, he neither lifted his hand nor held a spear or any weapon of war, but I saw only how he sent forth from his mouth something like a stream of fire, and from his lips a flaming breath, and from his tongue he shot forth a storm of sparks. So this is describing a UFO that has powers to administer all of these things, flames to kill and all this kind of stuff. It's describing as well something that Esdras can't understand in the time that he's seeing this. It's futuristic technology that we don't even know of. We don't even know about the technology on Earth, much less the stuff that Jesus Christ has. All these were mingled together, the stream of fire and the flaming breath and the great storm, and fell on the onrushing multitude that was prepared to fight and burned up all of them, so that suddenly nothing was seen of the innumerable multitude, but only the dust of ashes and the smell of smoke. When I saw it, I was amazed. And so God is absolutely cleaning up the earth at this point. After this, I saw the same man come down from the mountain and call to himself another multitude that was peaceable. So now there's another group that is making it through this, but they're a peaceful group. Then many people came to him, some of whom were joyful and some sorrowful. Some of them were bound and some were bringing others as offerings. And so this is a small group of people, and we'll get an interpretation of those people that God has preserved until the end times, of his own people, Israelites. And here we're going to get the interpretation of this vision. Then I woke up in great terror and prayed to the Most High and said, from the beginning you have shown your servants these wonders and have deemed me worthy to have my prayer heard by you. Now show me the interpretation of this dream also, for as I consider it in my mind, alas for those who will be left in those days. So Esdras is seeing just massive destruction, and he is obviously fearful and wants to know what is this. And still more, alas for those who are not left. For those who are not left will be sad because they understand the things that are reserved for the last days, but cannot attain them. But alas for those who are left, and for that very reason, for they shall see great dangers and much distress, as the dreams show. Yet it is better to come into these things, though incurring peril, than to pass from the world like a cloud and not see what will happen in the last days. So for those people who do, experience the last days, I believe we're in them. Esdras is saying here that even if it's painful, even there's tribulation, it's a blessing. Moving on. He answered me and said, I will tell you the interpretation of the vision. I will also explain to you the things that you have mentioned. As for what you have said about those who survive and concerning those who do not survive, this is the interpretation. The one who brings the peril at that time will protect those who fall into peril, who have works and faith towards the Almighty. Understand, therefore, that those who are left are more blessed than those who have died. This is the interpretation of the vision. As for your seeing a man come up from the heart of the sea, this is he whom the Most High has been keeping for many ages, who will himself deliver his creation, and he will direct those who are left. And as for your seeing wind and fire and a storm coming out of his mouth, and as for his not holding a spear or weapon of war, yet destroying the onrushing multitude that came to conquer him, this is the interpretation. The days are coming when the Most High will deliver those who are on earth. That's always the first thing. In any sequence or setup of the end times, that is always the first step, and no surprise that it's here. And bewilderment of mind shall come over those who inhabit the earth. Many people will not get it. They'll not know that they're in the end times. They'll not know that this is God. And these are people on God's left-hand side who only will listen to what the government tells them. They shall plan to make war against one another, city against city, place against place, people against people, and kingdom against kingdom. So this quote UFO invasion that's going to do what is written here, the days are coming when the Most High will deliver those who are on earth. That's the trigger for all this confusion. People are going to be like, what just happened? All these people are taken away. Homeless people are gone. All this kind of stuff. And God's elect are taken away from every nation on earth. And then it will throw the world into confusion, and then so, the markets will obviously crash. There'll be like scarcity of resources. And then it's going to be the beginning of this great tribulation period. And this is describing the Great Tribulation period, verse 30 and onwards. And to verse 30 and 31. Then verse 32, when these things take place and the signs occur that I showed you before, then my Son will be revealed, whom you saw as a man coming up out of the sea. This would be confusing to anybody who doesn't understand the Bible and only thinks that Christ is only allowed to return once or whatever, like God is only invited here once. This is the way Satan is. God has planted satanic ideas in people's minds amongst evangelical Christianity and even amongst the Hebrews that God, no, you're only allowed to come once. That's what it's never written there anywhere that that's the case. Right here it said in sequential order, the days are coming when the Most High will deliver those on earth. That's the first thing. And bewilderment of mind shall come over those who inhabit the earth. So that will be a worldwide event leading to all this great tribulation. And then when these things take place and signs occur that I showed you before, then my Son will be revealed, whom you saw as a man coming up from the sea. That's when he's coming up from the sea with destruction, with his angels and the elect. And so I hate to burst people's bubbles if they've really wanted Joel Osteen's version of the end times. Hate to break it to you. You've been deceived. Verse 33, then when all the nations hear his voice, all the nations shall leave their own lands and the warfare that they have against one another, and an innumerable multitude shall be gathered together as you saw, wishing to come and conquer him. And so they are now officially, everybody's microchipped. Everybody has the mark of the beast at this point. This is God's left-hand side. Every single person, again, except for this remnant, which we'll read about. And they're all aligned to try and fight against God himself. But he shall stand on the top of Mount Zion, and Zion shall come and be made manifest to all people. So he's going to be on Mount Zion, and Zion will come and made manifest. That's God's elect, prepared and built, as you saw the mountain carved out without hands. And so he's referring to that group is Mount Zion, like in a symbolic way. And it's God's elect, so he's coming with his elect. Then he, my Son, will reprove the assembled nations for their ungodliness. This was symbolized by the storm, and will reproach them to their face and their evil thoughts and the torments with which they are to be tortured, which were symbolized by the flames. and will destroy them without effort by means of the law, which was symbolized by the fire. So God is, this is his final judgment. As this is also a very, very important section that Daniel will not make sense unless a person reads 2nd Esdras. And as for your seeing him gather to himself another multitude that was peaceable, these are the 9 tribes that were taken away from their own land into exile in the days of King Hoshea, whom Salmanasar, king of the Assyrians, made captives. He took them across the river, and they were taken into another land. But they formed this plan for themselves that they would leave the multitude of the nations and go to a more distant region where no human beings had ever lived. That's a key point. Uninhabited. So that there at least they might keep their statutes that they had not kept in their own land. These people didn't give a flip who was leading them. They cared about the law more than anything. That's why these people are different, and God is going to give them a reward, for this. And they've been preserved since the time of Esdras till now. There are people living on earth right now who are obeying the law, and no one even knows that they exist except God. So they didn't care about their leadership. They cared more about the law than their leadership. That's why, again, many of these alphabet soup Hebrews are not the true Israelites spiritually. They don't care. Ball earth, whatever, flat earth, doesn't matter about the shape. Prostitutes, that's cool. Whatever, just do whatever you want. Adultery, that's fine too. It's all good. These are the people that are described here that are the apple of God's eye, plus God's elect. Those are the quote cream of the crop. And they went in by the narrow passages of the Euphrates River, for at that time the Most High performed signs for them and stopped the channels of the river until they had crossed over. Through that region there was a long way to go, a journey of 1.5 years, and that country is called Arzareth. Then check this out. Then they lived there until the last times. In these days I believe we're living in now. And now, when they are about to come again, the Most High will stop the channels of the river again so that they may be able to cross over. Therefore you saw the multitude gathered together in peace, but those who are left of your people who are found within my holy border shall be saved. Therefore, when he destroys the multitude of the nations that are gathered together, he will defend the people who remain, and then he will show them very many wonders. And so that also, again, is necessary to understand why in Daniel is it saying that a person is blessed if they make it till the end of this 1335 days. That's these individuals who actually care about God's laws. That's why you will not find any person in the main parts of the world that we know of that keep the law. They don't. It's just obvious. It's not even a shot to anybody. It's not me, and it's definitely not these Hebrews. It's only these people. But just from a common sense perspective, God would need this. God could never allow his law to be completely extinguished on earth, because when he looks down on it, he needs to be pleased with somebody, some people. And so it's these people who are actually keeping the law, and then it's the poor who are keeping it based on their condition. And so that is what that extra 45 days is for, of the 1335. I said, O sovereign Lord, explain this to me. Why did I see the man coming up from the heart of the sea? He said to me, just as no one can explore or know what is in the depths of the sea, so no one on earth can see my son or those who are with him except in the time of his day. This is the interpretation of the dream that you saw, and you alone have been enlightened about this, because you have forsaken your own ways and have applied yourself to mine and have searched out my law. For you have devoted your life to wisdom and called understanding your mother. Therefore I have shown you these things. That's why a majority of people on earth God does not deal with, because they care more about a pat on the back from men than God, and his law. And they have not made wisdom their mother, or called understanding their mother. Therefore I have shown you these things, for there is a reward laid up with the Most High. For it will be that after 3 more days I will tell you other things and explain weighty and wondrous matters to you. Then I got up and walked in the field, giving great glory and praise to the Most High for the wonders that he does from time to time, and because he governs the times and whatever things come to pass in their seasons. And I stayed there 3 days. Again, it's not a surprise if you read the book of Esdras. This is a person that God can interact with because he cares about his people, and he cares about God, and he wants to know what God is about to do, and that's all he cares about. And like it says here, for you have devoted your life to wisdom and called understanding your mother. He's not, he doesn't want to have partial truths. You know, he's not okay with just the globe earth and then a few truths and this and that. Esdras is seeking out all matters, you know, prophecy, everything, you know, that God is willing to share with him. And these are the people that God interacts with, not Tahar, not Zabak, not General Yohana, and those other Masons. These people. I want people to be very, very clear about that. God's not going to lower his standards in the last days just because we're all perverts. That's not the way it works. I'm going to end this one, and then I'll continue on with 15 and 16. Hope everyone's doing well. Bye.